To those looking to make the leap, my first thing is I'd say prepare yourself, lay down the pavement long before it's time for you to do so. Because on my last position, even going in the door, when you know you have a strong background and you know what you know, it helps you negotiate a better job. It helps you understand what you'll tolerate on that job. And when you figure out that you don't tolerate it, you know you can leave.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. Listen, we just started rapping about just the books and some of the stuff that we're doing here. But more importantly, today, welcome to Unfinished Business. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I got a marketing specialist here, a guru. This guy knows this stuff. But more importantly, we're going to be talking not just marketing in general, but obviously building organizations, being successful doing that. But the thing today that I really want to touch on is that, not just messaging and content, but is more better, is less, is it
Mm,
more impactful to do, something not as much, but yet really thought out. Like I've gone both ways. And then
yeah.
we're going to talk about marketing and sales teams, right? Like
Yeah.
meshing that gap, because it's a real art to be able to mesh, get marketing and rolling, and then have the sales team really lock in step with what's going on. Because then the sales team
Mhm.
says, well, marketing's not doing enough. And then the marketing team says, well, the sales team's not selling enough. So we're going to
Yeah.
touch on that, everybody. And Lee Judge, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to give everybody a little bit of background here. Listen, this guy is the co-founder of Content Monsta, and he's helping businesses produce content, putting great marketing strategies together. He's a speaker. He has his podcast himself, and now he's writing a book, which we started in with in a conversation, and we can touch on that as well. But listen, Lee, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you being here.
David, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to
Yeah,
be here. Love this conversation. All those topics you mentioned are ones that I'm passionate about. So let's go.
yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. All right, so listen, give our listeners a little bit of background about yourself and really what got you, you know, fired up and putting your career in motion on this content and marketing in general. So yeah, give us a little background.
Yeah, I think the key pivot points for me in my career to make sense to this audience is that I originally had a multimedia background. My original degree is in communications and media
Mhm.
production. When I moved to Atlanta, I actually ended up in a marketing position and didn't realize that up until that point, I come from an entrepreneurial family. And so I've been marketing my dad's business, marketing my businesses. I've been marketing, but I never had a marketing official title. So when I got that marketing official title, those two roads still kind of stayed separate, my creative life and my marketing life, until I was in a company that recognized that, they gave me a digital marketing position. And that position meant that I need to also understand or bring in my creative side to add into the marketing side. And so in that position, I was already working between marketing and sales. And so I have these two things still evolving. There's the creative content marketing side, and then there's this marketer who was hired to land between marketing and sales. And I was given Salesforce, the CRM, as my baby day one. And I have to admit, I had been avoiding jobs that said Salesforce experience needed because I didn't even know what it was. But the CEO who hired me recognized I had built like 6 CRMs. I just didn't know the terminology. So yeah, that put me smack dab between marketing and sales. That lasted for 20 years, in corporate, working between marketing and sales. And along the way, I spun off a company called Content Monsta, which is designed to create content for businesses.
Yeah. And when was that point where there's so much I want to get into, but I want to talk about this
Mhm.
first. But when was that point where you decided to make that leap to do your own thing? Because there's listeners out there who may be in the corporate world right now, and they're doing their thing, and they have this entrepreneurial desire to be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. And then you have some people who are listening to this who are in the mix of it right now, which are really going to benefit from our conversation on marketing and advertising. But was there a pivotal point that where you made that leap or you said to yourself, you know what, I'm going for this?
Well, a key point that I tell people who are looking to go off on their own is I set the path for this long before. My first corporate job in Atlanta, I told the person who interviewed me that I have a business on the side, and I always will. I'm an entrepreneurial
Right.
person. I always like to build things, and they took it as an asset. Like, this is someone who has real initiative. And I said, I will work for you definitely, but I also will have things going. They said, well, you know what? At least give us 2 solid years. I gave them 12. And that 12 happened because they never told me I couldn't do my own thing on the side. And so I was learning on the side on my own business,
Right.
and they benefited from what I learned from. That happened for my next 3 jobs where I came in the door saying, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I have these things going on. My last corporate job, I said, look, I'm a speaker. I go to conferences, I speak, I teach. These are things that I can, I'll be bringing to you in house. I'll also bring back what I learned from other speakers while I'm out there. And on that last go around, they were the only ones who were a little bit more limited on what I could say and do as a speaker.
Yeah.
And that ended up working against them more so than me, because by
Right.
then
Right.
I was ready to go on my own. And it came to a point where I was on big stages and I was happy to carry their logo with me and say, hey, I work for this company. But they were kind of shy about, maybe our logo shouldn't be on that. I said, hey, fine. They're paying me to be there anyway. So I don't have to, I don't need
Yeah.
their support in
Right.
this point.
Right. Like, why wouldn't you? Yeah.
To those looking to make the leap, my first thing is I'd say prepare yourself, lay down the pavement long before it's time for you to
Mhm.
do so. Because on my last position, even going in the door, when you know you have a strong background and you know what you know, it helps you negotiate a better job. It helps
Yeah.
you understand what you'll tolerate on that job.
Yeah. That's
And when
true.
you figure out that you don't tolerate it, you can leave.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that what I really liked about what you said is your transparency going into this, right? Because I'm big on, maximizing your experiences. And there's a lot these days where if you go in and you're transparent about what you want to accomplish, listen,
Mhm.
companies want that. And I think it's huge that you can cross market. Like that's what I do
Yeah.
now as a consultant. Is that was one of the things that's different than when I, working in businesses for years and working inside out versus working outside in. I mean, I have
Yeah.
clients now where I have the flexibility to do some cross connections. I just did one today,
Yeah.
some cross connections, and that's a huge benefit. So I think that's important. But all right, let's turn the tail because marketing's a you get thrown in this box, right? Marketing.
Yeah.
And but your focus is really driven by content marketing. And
Yeah.
I want to get into this, but what was the turning point that led you to focus on the content? What did you see that really you wanted to put pressure on this?
Well, in 2017, I was a marketing director and I needed some video that would help explain our new product that we had as a software company.
Okay.
And I realized that the best answers always came from the salespeople. Like, they were front line, they were having the conversations. And so, with my multimedia background, I said, let me just sit these people down and talk to them, just see what they have to say. Like, when you talked to a customer last week, what were their objections? What features made them really happy, or what things did they question? Just asking these regular conversational questions. And we got some amazing content from the sales team because as a marketer, we write things markety. We gloss things over to be so beautiful and perfect, and we may miss some of those key pains that a customer has. We may even miss the language the customer uses. Like, we may be marketing the new widget 3000 while the customer calls it a screwdriver. And only the salesperson knows that. Even if it's not really a screwdriver, if they call it that, we need to know that language. And so I began creating that content and we put it up on the website and on YouTube. And it ended up being a sales enablement tool because the
Right.
salesperson could say, you know what? I feel you, customer. I hear what you're saying. And I tell you what, I've got a video that can help explain that even more. So while they're getting rushed off that call, they can say, I'll email you a link to a video. They get
Yeah.
this video, it fully explains that customer pain. And so that catalog builds up over time. You have it on your website, on YouTube, and it's really good content for both sales enablement, but also SEO. So that's where we realized that was a thing. And that content led to other companies asking me, "Hey, Lee, can you produce that for us?" And I said, "Well, there's no conflict of interest. I work at this company, but yeah, sure, I can." And
Yeah.
so I began creating content for other companies. And that not only signaled that it was time to create a company for that, it really confirmed that content marketing was valuable for businesses. And so that's the niche that I started in and stay in.
Listen, this is what, for me, on the content side, right? Like, there's so much going through my head and the questions I want to ask you on the content side, because I just finished one of the chapters of my book called Validation.
Mhm.
And if there's one thing that you can do, if you're working for a company or you're the owner of a company right now and you don't have video, whether it's testimonial videos or just content, educational videos, it doesn't have to be sell, sell, sell all the time. It could be educational on benefits and things of that nature. But you're really missing the boat if you're not leveraging video content and really putting that out there, at least giving your team, like you said, it's going to build up over time. You don't have to take it all on at once.
Yeah.
But if you can build up a library at time and give your sales team or your company better tools to leverage value,
Mhm.
I'm a big, big believer in that. But since we're talking about sales teams,
Yeah.
I want to talk about many companies struggle
Mhm.
to align marketing and sales. How do you bridge the gap to ensure both teams are really maximizing the efforts and obviously the revenue goals for organizations?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that question because I'm in the middle of recording the audio version of my book.
All right.
The book is called Cash, and it's Communication, Alignment, Systems, and Honesty. And I just finished the alignment. I'm in the systems part now, and it answers that question. And there's a couple of places that directly give examples of how you can achieve this. And let's look at both sides. From a marketing side,
Okay.
first of all, marketers, you have to learn the language of sales. You have to create reports and data that tie to the bottom line. If you're talking likes and follows and web hits, that isn't going to translate above the CMO. You can't justify your job on those kind of metrics. So you have to understand what matters to sales. If you're talking to a salesperson, you have to talk about how can I help you increase your pipeline? How can I help you increase the velocity of closing your deals faster? What can we do together to help you close deals faster? That's talking to sales. Talking to their reports. If you're a
More
marketer,
leads.
more
Yeah.
leads. You got to talk. Their talk, right? I mean, if I'm a marketer and I'm in a boardroom and I'm presenting a marketing report, I'm thinking the people in that room are thinking one of two things. They're either thinking, what on that report will help me with my job, and what on that report actually means something to me closing deals, which is the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they don't want to see markety stuff. Web page views, that sounds great. It's real soft, but how does it really help me? And so I tell marketers, if you're going to be in that position, first of all, always encourage them to be in the sales meetings. But what do you present? If you're presenting a marketing report, that marketing report has to tie into and use the language of sales, and some of those line items or charts you're presenting have to use language considering how does it increase their pipeline. In fact, it could be as simple as saying, look, this is a social media report, but this report shows how your prospect was just engaging on LinkedIn or in our socials. That wakes them up. That makes them lean in to go, okay, I thought this was really softball marketing stuff, but if you're talking to my prospect and I'm not involved, I need to know about it. So that's for marketing.
Yeah.
And for sales, can you imagine going into a sales meeting with someone and you have no idea that that person just left your webinar, or that prospect just
Right.
read 10 pages on your website, or just talked to your marketing team on LinkedIn or on X? You want to
Yeah.
know what your prospects are doing, and your marketing team knows. And so it behooves a salesperson to really dig into marketing content and marketing data to make better decisions when they go out to sell.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I've always said this in the organizations I've built, right? Whether it was operations, whether it was marketing, whether it was sales, and it's not realistic, but I always would say this. I would love to take a marketing person and put them out in the field with a
Yeah.
B2B sales professional for a week. And I would love to take a sales professional and sit them in the marketing chair for a week.
Hmm.
Now, I know that's not realistic, but what you said earlier, which I really like, is that you did they're listen, you don't have to have them out for a week, but you can intermingle them in
Yeah.
certain exercises, whether it's meetings or maybe they're launching a campaign. But the more understanding, the more communication, the more that's going to open up on areas to put pressure. And I always say put pressure, put pressure on areas where things aren't working just so we can break them.
Yeah.
And then put pressure on things where it is working because we want to duplicate it and we want to keep getting more of that sort of thing. But I've
Yeah.
always said that, and it sounds like when you started this, that really sparked something for me.
Yeah, I mean, we look at things like meetings, trainings, and events. Meetings, marketing, sales, push your way into their meetings. Now, marketers are typically the ones trying the hardest to get into the sales meeting. And so if you want to be a better marketer, get into that sales meeting, hear the objectives they're talking about, hear what their pains are. Like, is the sales team struggling with a particular product or service? Are they struggling with pipeline? Did the boss just give them some kind of, you know, thing you have to get done by Q2 or by Q4? Marketing needs to know these things so they can actually react and help with those things. On the flip side, sales should be in marketing meetings to make sure that what marketing is doing aligns with what they're trying to do. I saw a case once where marketing was pushing this new product and they kept trying to figure out why in the world isn't sales on board helping us with this new product. Well, had marketing been in the sales meeting, they'd realize that sales, their bread and butter was coming from the old product. It was working, it was easier to sell, the revenue was
Yeah.
coming in from the old product, and sales wasn't on board with changing what was already working. So they have to know that, and sales could learn what marketing is bringing down coming up if they were in those meetings. So that's meetings. Trainings, there should be joint training sessions. Myself, people like you and others are giving training sessions to marketing and sales teams that are designed for both teams to be in the room, to learn together, to be a revenue team, not a sales team, not a marketing team, but a revenue team. That's trainings. And then events. My last few weeks in my last job as a marketer, I
Yeah.
insisted on being at the trade show because throughout my career as a marketer, I was on the trade show floor with the salespeople because I wanted to
It's
stand
great.
beside them while they're talking to these prospects. When they do a cold 10-second pitch to somebody they just met in a booth at a trade show, what they do is key to a marketer because you can figure out what do I need to give them to help them do that better. You get a chance to hear objections in real time. You just get a really feel of what it's like to really be in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
So sales has to be there. And then on the same
Yeah.
side, if if sales knows what marketing went through to develop the booth and the leads and promoting people who came to the show, and how did you find out who was already going to be at the show to develop some warm leads to come by the booth, all that stuff pre-event. Sales needs to know all the work marketing does because they often think that marketing just creates a booth and says, here, go stand there for 3 hours. No, the reality is marketing should be looking at who's attending the show, who went last year, where those leads went from last year. Did they come out with any deals from last year's trade show? Let us help you set some
Uh,
meetings. What's the messaging on the board? Do we need a kiosk to generate some leads and collect data? All those things are what marketing is working on, but sometimes sales doesn't realize it. So I said meetings, trainings, and events all should be done together.
you have to cross connect experiences the best that you can. We know it's not a perfect world and everybody's time is valuable and they got the job done, but you and I are so aligned on this, right, man? Like
Hmm.
you've
Yeah.
got to cross connect experiences and that will open things up. All right, you're bringing me my next stuff here because you're already talking about this.
Hmm.
Talked about CRM earlier. We're talking about metrics. Really, how important are understanding the metrics in all of this?
Oh, so important. And they're always changing, especially for marketers. And the good thing is they're changing to come in line with each other. I've been given the talk related to my book for the past year and a half. And I found out after the first couple of talks, I had the same question asked twice. And I go, oh, I got to
Okay.
respond to this. The question was, they said, "Hey, Lee, you just told us, that marketing needs to make sure we have information that relates to sales, that sales can dig into and respect marketing's role. But what are those things? And how do we measure that?" So, in response to that, you can go to my website, aleejudge.com. There's an article where I have, I think it's 6 to 10 equations. Like these are equations that marketers can use to come up with numbers that they can report up the ladder to CMO and above. That's the key thing, above the CMO, or the
Right.
CMO can take into a meeting with the other executives and say, this is marketing's impact on the bottom line. These aren't fluff numbers about, and now given within marketing, we need vanity metrics. We need to know followers and web traffic. We need
Of
this
course.
inside marketing. But outside marketing, we need more. And these equations that I have on the website will give you some hard numbers that will translate and be respected up the line.
Yeah. And then conversions, obviously. I mean, you've got to understand, but it all starts with the activity. And that's
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing, right? Because if you can identify, all right, when we do get a lead, how that converts and how many of those obviously there's CRMs to gauge
Mhm.
pipelines, and obviously pipeline is a lifeline, so you got to gauge those pipelines and where they are. But it really starts with the beginning and leads, because once you identify that, you can really get a gauge of how much effort, again, putting pressure in areas that are working. So I think it's a huge point. Listen, point blank. What mistakes do you see businesses making when it comes to content marketing and how to correct them in general, since we're on the content side?
Yeah. The number one mistake is not understanding that content marketing is the long game.
Okay.
We had a client recently ask us to, this was a prospect at that moment. They said, "Hey, we want to do some content marketing with you. We want you to give us a strategy and create some content for us. And we need to get results in 3 months so we can determine where to go next." And
Okay.
we told them, for the content marketing part, you won't get results in 3 months. It doesn't work that fast. It's not advertising, it is not coin operated. So we told them, what we'll do is we will give you a strategy. We'll help you. We'll examine what you're doing now. We'll give you some examples of content to move forward with once we end our engagement. But this 3 months, our deliverable will be a strong strategy for you to move forward with. Because if we tried to say we're going to give you, video shorts or long form video or podcasts, we can produce those for you, but you won't see results that fast. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
there may be a lead or two here, but not enough to justify what you may spend to get started. And so that's the first thing. The first thing is marketing, especially content marketing, is the long game. It does provide results. It may take 6 months, it may take a year for those things to roll in. I mean, even myself, I can
It,
give you first person examples. I've got our two biggest deals came from me being on stage a year and a half ago.
yeah.
That was content
Yeah.
marketing.
Is there an evolution of key metrics that you would recommend a business? Because obviously, when you first start a campaign, the metrics are going to be much different, like you said, versus being 2 years in, right? So, do you have this evolution of key metrics that you like to identify for a business?
Yeah, well, the first key metrics are going to be, as we mentioned earlier, internal to marketing,
Okay.
because the metrics that impact the bottom line won't be for another half to 3, 4 quarters later. So
Yeah.
the metric should be designed to say, if it's right now we're in Q1 of 2025. If you're developing content right now, you have to communicate to the sales leaders that this will impact us Q3, Q4. Expect this not to show up until then. And the problem that most companies do is they say, okay, we're going to start this initiative, but if we don't see results in 3, 4 months, we're going to stop it. And that happens over and over and over. 3 months from
Yeah.
now, do something new. 3 months later, you stop it. They treat it like it's ad spend. Now, of course, if I turn on my Google ads right now and I don't see any web visits or leads or even deals within the next month or two, I'm going to readjust, maybe even stop that particular ad. That's how ads work. We have to communicate that that isn't how content marketing works. It builds up. I have podcasts that are 3 years old and still generating leads and business.
Uh-huh.
The beautiful part of that is it's compounding. Things are, I have more and more and more content. And that's the key thing too. Content marketing is evergreen. It keeps on going. You never
It's going
know
there.
when that old content will bring new business. Whereas advertising, when you turn it off, it turns off. It stops. The faucet stops. No more leads coming in from the advertising. Now that sounds attractive to a business person, that what you do today could bring you business for years to come. That sounds way more attractive than saying what you do today will not bring business tomorrow.
Yes.
They're both true, but I would frame it as will bring you business for years to come.
Listen, you got to clip that back because this is, you just, I mean, I understand this, but I really want to make this the point. Content marketing is not an advertising strategy to just
No.
generate the quick hits. Content marketing is something that will play in the long. It's like a plant. It will grow over time. You got to water it. You got to get
Yeah,
sunlight on it. You got to keep nurturing it. But it's one of those things that, and here's the biggest thing, Lee, and I think you'll agree with this. It draws credibility. I mean, it
absolutely.
really does. Marketing and advertising, you get thrown in this box, for years, especially for years, I've done it in the small SMB space. And marketing and advertising is thrown in this box. Well, you do marketing and advertising, and you don't really get the opportunity to explain your differentiators when you're first talking to somebody. When you get going, you can do that. But the beauty about this is, you can create. It's such a creation, and you really have the opportunity to build this over time. But it's like anything. You got to be disciplined, and you got to be consistent. And I think that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier. That's important.
Yeah, well, think about this. We're in an era where trust is weakening every day because, think about a website. I was telling someone this is maybe a couple years ago, where they saw
Mhm.
someone's website and it looked really nice. And I said, you do realize those are WordPress press templates. Like the templates today
Yeah.
come out really slick. You can launch a template website and look like what was a Fortune 500 company, but it's a template. So where do you get deeper into credibility? Well, first of all, get rid of the stock images, get some real people in there, start writing articles, and it can't be, AI created in a world of, or today's marketing so and so is, you
Uh-huh.
can't be that, because again, you might fool some people with that stuff, but you won't fool somebody who wants to become a customer. The next level is actually providing fresh, relatable content, whether it be text or video or podcast, because people are going to research. And we know that the customer is somewhere near 80% through their buyer's journey, their customer journey, before they reach out to a salesperson. Now, what if there's nothing to research? We've had
Yeah.
clients who say, hey, why can't we compete with this other company? And we start investigating to build our strategy. We say, well, your competitor has a podcast that's kicking out, 3 or 4 short video clips a day. They're kicking out a full episode podcast every
Yeah.
week. The sheer volume of touch points that they have available, the sheer volume of possibilities to answer a customer's question are vast. And they're coming up with new answers to present to potential customers every single day. Whereas you're putting out one blog article that answers one question once a week or once a month. You just can't compete with that. Today's content is happening much, much faster than it was 2, 3 years ago. And it has different levels of polish. Like we have a thing called the QVQ content funnel, which is quality versus quantity. And
Yes.
it's mainly about production quality. Like when you're trying to hit top of the funnel or even above the funnel, you need so much volume to touch as many people as possible that you can't have studio, super polished Hollywood videos for every person you want to touch top of funnel, because you can't budget that much money into it. Now, when they get to the bottom of the funnel, sure, they're more likely to spend money with you, so you can spend more money on that kind of content. So you got to balance out where that quality and quantity, who are you targeting with that? And again, that lends back to that top of the funnel, fast, rough, and dirty kind of conversation like we're doing right now. Conversations that
Yeah.
lends credibility, like you said. Like this is a real person. I've seen David talk. I know what he looks like, what he sounds like. It's not marketing talking to me. It's the actual CEO or the actual technologist who made the software. That means so much more to a customer.
It does. And tell me this. I mean, what's more important to invest in, your website or content marketing at this point? And just based on our conversation, I mean, you're right. People can slap up this beautiful billboard and how great they are and what they know. But I got to tell you, where the rubber is meeting the road these days is on conversations like this. Put
Yeah.
put a CEO or put a sales leader or put somebody in front on the camera and listen to a couple people talk or listen to some of their leaders talk, because that will really identify for you if they do know what's going on. I mean, the whole motivation for me doing this podcast is, through the years, I've made a lot of great decisions, and I've also made a lot of mistakes too. But I've learned from those mistakes. And I only call them mistakes if you don't learn from them. But
Yeah.
more importantly, why I do this show is because I want to share my experiences and I want to bring on the best and guys like you who've been there, done it, and can direct people in a way where they're thinking about getting into business or are in business right now that want to make a change to do better. And things evolve so much in the business
So
world. They
so
just
fast.
evolve,
Yeah.
right? They just evolve so much. So I know right now people are getting something out of this, but again, I want to go back to where this started, Lee, and that is don't get fooled by the shiny object. Okay,
Yeah.
understand if there's some real uh, content behind what they're doing, whether from their customers or whether for things like this on podcasts. But I think it's important. I just want to make that point. It just you struck a nerve
Yeah,
with
because
that one.
you asked the question, what's most important, the website
Yeah,
glossiness or the content? It's absolutely the content. And if you go to a website and you can see the people who are building the thing, who are selling the thing, who know about it, some customer testimonials. I'd rather have a site with customer testimonials on it all day long than the most amazing graphic design, flashy video, whatever background of a website. You need to have
yeah,
what the
yeah,
customer looks for.
yeah.
I hate when I go to a website and it's beautiful, but there's nothing there. Like, give me some proof that you actually are doing this. Let me show me some logos of customers. Show me some customers talking about it. Show me some examples of your work, something content wise. I mean, this may be a different genre, but you look at the website design of everything from Facebook to Craigslist to X, there's not a lot of website design there. It's all about the
Yeah.
content, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
even news sites, it's full of content. They're given their content companies, but you don't see a bunch of large headers with videos in the background. You see content. And there's a reason for that. And I think businesses should understand the same thing that people come to research, some read, some watch, some listen. You need to be able to feed all those types of content consumers. Some rather just listen on their jog. Some rather watch a video on YouTube or on your website. You have to have content for all types. Otherwise, you're going to miss those types of consumers. And again, that content is way more important than your glossy
Way
website.
more. Yeah, and I have a confession to make, man. I mean, when I started my consulting business 2 years ago, um, I mean, if you look at our website right now, there's some stock images in there and all this kind of stuff, but I didn't have much content in the beginning. Okay. And
Mhm.
now I'm redoing the site, get some things updated. I mean, I have so much content from the shows here, from just things
Yeah.
I've posted and all that stuff. So if you're a company out there that was in my position, maybe you've been around, you don't have content at this point, or maybe you're just starting the business. How would you recommend, you know, from the start, or maybe not having content to start getting this going now? Would you make some recommendations?
I'll tell you, I almost hate using the word hack, but the greatest hack
Uh-huh.
for content is what we're doing right now, a
Okay.
podcast. Because the amount of content that comes out of this, let's say you have a podcast and your
Uh-huh.
customer is expert in their industry. You invite that customer on your podcast. Now, as you're talking to them, At some point in that 30-minute conversation, they'll say something positive about you. You can even coerce them into like, so we've been working together for this many years, David. What do you think? Or, why did you come to this company? Or what does your company need? And how do we help you with that? So here's what you can output.
Okay.
You output images, you
Okay.
output shorts of that conversation, you output a customer testimonial. That's the most powerful one. You
Mhm.
output a podcast. You can take that conversation and turn it into another article.
Blog,
We
yeah.
had a client, yeah. So that's articles, images, the podcast itself, video shorts, video long parts. If they answer one question, then it takes them 3 minutes to answer it. That's a YouTube video of 3 minutes long, aside from the full video, right?
Yeah, right,
They're
right.
going to answer some questions for you. If you ask a CTO about a particular industry, there's an article now you have that what a CTO thinks about XYZ. Now you have another article. There's so much just from that conversation, even if you never even put it out as a podcast. I'm trying to evolve past the word podcast because really it's just an opportunity to create content together.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah, it's
I will
content
note
media.
that we had a client last week who just launched their podcast. Episode 1, they got 5 leads on the episode 1,
Yeah,
and they'll get business from that. So it's not impossible to do that, to get leads directly that you can attribute. But attribution should not be your goal, but they were able
yeah.
to do it, which is rare. But again, there's your hack to create tons of different kinds of content is turn the cameras on and have conversations.
Yeah, so and I wanna be like, here's the other thing too that I wanna touch on, and I want your opinion on this, right? Because we wanna be the experts, but we also wanna generate leads. So
Yeah.
how do you toe that line, right, without sounding like you're selling something, but in the same light, trying to get somebody to call you? Like, what did they do? Okay,
Yeah.
so if they did a podcast, what were some of the things that they did to show credibility and generate lead without even saying, "Hey, buy my product, by the way. Here's what we do. Call us today to buy it."
Well, I'll answer that by giving you an example of how I've done it.
Okay.
So we had a client who called us probably around June or July one year,
Mhm.
and we had a meeting with them, and they went dark. Then they
Okay.
came back to us around November, and they said, "Oh, we've been watching your podcast ever since we called you before. We've learned so much, and we realized that you're really an authority on this situation, on this on marketing. So we want to do some business with you." Now, to answer your question, how did they assume or how did they learn that I was an authority in this case? A lot of it came from who I was associated with because they mentioned
Yeah.
that, well, we saw your podcast where you talked to Guy Kawasaki. We saw you talk to Joe Pulizzi. We saw you talk to Seth Godin. If you can talk to these guys, if you have them in your old school, we'll say Rolodex, if your contact list,
Uh-huh.
then you must be in a circle of people we want to work with, right?
Yeah.
So that, associated credibility comes along with it too, because, if you look at somebody who's not at a certain level, they won't have those people in their circle to talk to. So that's how you can have a podcast and you can have those conversations. Now, I had one person, a friend, best-selling author, leader in the marketing world, Mark Schaefer. He actually
Mhm.
told me during an interview when I was interviewing him, he said, "Lee, you need to take more time to show your expertise. You don't want to be seen as an excellent interviewer. You want to
Yeah.
be able to show your expertise as well." So I
Yes.
have been more conscious about that, and I've actually appeared on more podcasts as a result of that. And then the
It's
book
great.
is going to show that as well. But the bottom line is having those conversations, whether it's your show or someone else's, over time shows your credibility because people will realize who you're associated with, what you're saying. They can consume your conversations and your content, and it leads to business. That particular client I mentioned earlier, it led to business. And had they not said, "I've been listening to your podcast," I could not have attributed the podcast to that. But since then, we're more aggressive now about asking, like, "How did you find out about us?" And we hear more and more that it's that dark social, that dark marketing where you can't attribute it to anything within your CRM, but the
Yeah.
customer tells you how they learned about you. So there you go. That's how you build
It's good.
credibility and build
Great,
business.
man. That's fantastic. And 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 I will say this too. Here's the evolution. Here's something that's interesting that's going on right now, right? These personal brands are actually driving business. Whereas before
Yes.
it was like the banner of the business, right? And hey, call this company and they can do this for you. Where personal branding is actually a huge part of marketing today. So how important is it for business leaders to develop their own personal digital presence? Because I'm seeing this shift in the last few years. I've noticed it more. It might have been around longer than that, but that's what I've noticed.
Well, it's funny you said that because just yesterday I was talking with a friend of mine who works for Bank of America, and he had me aware of. I think the CEO is Brian Moynihan. I hear that name a lot because he works there. But I
Uh,
also noticed yesterday when I was following some news from Davos from the conference, there was some conversation between the leaders of J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and I think it was Scotiabank, another bank in Europe,
and
and it was the people, the personal brands having this conversation about the big organizations they led. And the interest was in the people, not in the organizations. And so if you think about the world's biggest brands, there's typically a face or a name that comes to mind the moment you say it. If I say Apple, you hear Steve Jobs. If
jobs,
I say
right,
Tesla,
right,
you see
right.
Elon. So these names come to mind. So that's full on proof right there. Now, if you have a smaller business or if you're working with inside a larger corporation,
Mhm.
um, smarter corporations will appreciate people, even the sales team, marketers, even building their personal brands. Because for me, for example, up until this last situation, when I'm on stage and my personal brand is what got me on that stage, I'm bringing logos with me, right?
Yeah.
And what it says is this company has smart people. This company is generous to share this person with us. This company has experts. This company is so solid in what they know, they're confident to share it with us. That's what a personal brand inside a business does. So if that business is too afraid to show off how good of people they have, those people should probably question the company they work for.
Right,
Um,
right, because
so
they're secure, their self security, right?
the
Their
self-security,
confidence
yeah,
in it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I want to touch on the book, okay?
yeah,
Because I first off, I'm loving the conversation, man. I'm really digging it. I really do. I enjoy talking with you, and we have a lot of alignment. But there's also a lot of stuff that's coming out of this that's going to be hugely helpful. I can't believe it's almost been 45 minutes. But at any rate,
yeah.
let's talk about the book. Okay,
Okay,
what's it's coming out? Okay, you've been
yeah.
working on it.
So
You said you've been promoting it, and
this is
go
the
ahead,
first
shoot.
interview I've done where I have a solid date. So the solid
Okay,
published date is 2/25/25, February
mark it
25th,
down.
25th. Yeah. And we're going to do a soft launch for some advanced members. If you go to aleejudge.com/cash right
Okay,
now, it may come down the next couple of days, but right now, you can sign up for the pre-launch team, and the pre-launch will have access to it sooner. There'll be some audio. The beauty of this thing is, and I'm excited about it because I'm an audio video person, is that
yeah,
after finished writing the book, I went out and interviewed some people, some experts who I knew had something to give for those particular parts of the book.
okay.
And since I interviewed them, I have the audio from those conversations. And so in the audio version of the book, you'll hear my voice, but when they give input, you'll hear their voice as
Oh, that's
well.
great. That's great.
And on top of that, we're going to have another special, like a community section online where you can hear the full conversation. Like in the book, it may be a minute or two, but you'll have access to the full conversation that could be an hour long with some of these experts.
Great,
And
man.
so the book is called CASH. It's an acronym for Communication, Alignment, Systems, and Honesty. And the tagline is it's for marketers who want to understand better how to sell and sell people who need to understand how to be marketers and the leaders who want to build a revenue team. In fact, the
It's
official
great.
subtitle is the four keys to better sales, smarter marketing, and a revenue machine. So that's what it's for. It's for both of those people, marketers, salespeople, and most importantly, the people who lead those two teams. And I'm excited
It's
about it because it's I put my heart into it after 20 years of seeing what worked and what didn't work between
Uh-huh.
sales teams and marketing teams. And I had the unique position of being in the middle of those teams, so I became kind of bilingual between sales and marketing. And so I want to break that barrier down and let people see on both sides the lane and build one revenue team out of those two skill sets.
Oh, that's fantastic. Listen, I can't wait for it to come out because I'm going to check it out. And listen, it is not easy. Okay. In building organizations and having B2B sales professionals and a marketing team, it is not easy. But this book, I can tell you, based on the experience in conversations with Lee and getting to know him a little bit, this is going to help you streamline your process. This is going to help speed up your education path, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for it to come out. Um, all right, let's switch gears a little bit here. Okay, let's talk
Mhm.
about technology.
All
The
right.
two-letter word. The two-letter word. You said
It
it
must
earlier,
be
AI.
AI.
Uh-huh, right. Everyone wants to
Yeah.
talk about it, but what the heck? We're going to talk about it as well since we're talking about marketing.
Yeah.
Um, with AI and the rise of automation, I mean, how do you see technology enhancing marketing efforts without losing really the credibility and really being genuine? Because I'll tell you what, as you go along here, and I see it now, you can tell when I'm starting to pick up things that are AI generated, right? Someone just going and getting into AI, they're typing in, "Hey, tell me how to send this email," and then you get it, and you're like, "Man, I've never seen that word in an email before. Like, what?" But talk to me about, and obviously we're going to go deeper than that, but talk to me about the presence of automation
Yeah.
and how you see this playing out.
Well, the evolution of AI is gonna be somewhat like I think the internet was. First there was fear, then there was, is this gonna be evil or it's gonna be a tool to help us? And the reality is, yeah, AI is gonna be all those things. It's gonna be used for good and evil. It's just like any other superpower that we obtain. The difference may be that it happened much faster. Um, we were able to understand and acclimate to the internet. We had probably 10 years to get used to the internet. At one point, if you were a plumber, you said, I don't need to have a website. That's for internet companies, you know. But now what plumber wouldn't have a website? They're not an internet company, they're a plumber, but they haven't have a
Right.
website. So AI, same thing. You have AI companies now. You have people who are learning to use AI. AI is going to become like electricity. Like it's just there. I'm not using, I didn't think 1 minute that I came into this studio and began using electricity. I just turn things on because it's always there. That's AI. It's going to be in everything we do online and offline. Our devices, our refrigerator is going to be AI. So it's going to be very ubiquitous.
Yeah.
How do we approach it? We approach it the same way we did with the internet. It's gonna happen. Get on board, whether you get on board or not, it's gonna happen. It's an amazing tool to learn. Right now, it should be learned, but at the same time, there's some levels of learning that you may not have to, as a consumer, dig into to learn right now because it's like it's like an engine, right? So I don't need to learn how to build an engine because someone already built a car for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, I'm the geeky person learning about AI engines, but to most people, you never have to learn the engine. You just have to figure out what software
Yeah.
somebody built on top of the engine to learn how to drive the car. Um, and of course, there's a matter of learning, what to perceive as real and what's not real. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing that I'm afraid of in terms of we had 10 years to learn the internet. We've had 10 months to learn AI, and it's
Yeah.
changing
Good
every
point.
month. So
Good point.
that's
I think
where we
that's
are with
important.
AI.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is too, and I'm a big believer in this. Okay, here's the other thing. You've got to understand the mechanics of what you're doing. Okay. And I
Yeah.
and I really translate this a lot into the sales world, right? Like you've got to know the strategy. You've got to have an execution plan. You've got to know the metrics. And what AI is going to do for us in that world is it's going to speed up a lot of the busy work that we would have to do and make it
Mhm.
come to life a lot quicker.
Mhm.
And so you got to embrace, but I always say this, you have to know, you've got to understand you got to have the experience and the strategy to be able to execute before you can really leverage those tools to the best of your ability. Otherwise, you're right. You're going to be sending out an email. You're going to send out an email that someone's going to look at it and they're going to know right away. But if you understand how to use it and you again know that the steps in the right execution, you just want to use it to leverage the process and put yourself in a position to do things quicker.
Yeah, another weird thing that's happening right now too is since we're
Yeah.
learning how to use it, we're realizing that some things that are stereotypically AI generated are actually real people writing because the AI is copying how we write in the first place. Like, I built a GPT months ago. It's called Write Like Lee to help
Okay.
if I want to rewrite an email or something, and it's designed to write like me. And so I trained it on my writing material, my actual out of my
That's
head writing
great.
material. But I also over time have to remind it, do and don't say certain things. So the step I did was here's 10, 15 of my blog articles. Here's a part of my book. This is how I write. And then I said, analyze it and tell me, how do I write? It says, well, Lee likes to explain things. He uses examples. He has varying links in his sentences. He doesn't try to sound overly smart with big jargon words. He makes it clear for educational purposes. Okay, there's my prompt, and I build on it. Now,
Yeah.
along the way, we also said Lee would never say in the world of, like
Right.
AI
Right.
would,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
But there's some things that are funny because I've seen people call others out for AI when it was actually
Yeah.
their writing. Like, for
Yeah.
example, because I give examples, I may say something like, you know, it's not just a dessert, it's a delicious thing to eat. Now, that's a typical AI thing. It's not just,
Right.
it's.
Right.
That's
Right.
a typical AI thing. And I write like that in real life. And so I had to go in and say, you know what? Even if I write this, undo it because I don't want that to be
You don't want it in there.
perceived
Yeah.
as AI. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've written an email and you want to say, "Hey, Lee, I hope you're doing well." Now I'm like, AI always
Yeah.
does that. Maybe I
Yeah.
can't do that anymore.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, totally,
we're in a weird
totally. Yeah,
time.
and I use it. I really do. I mean, but you got to use it to the max. Like I'll create something, have it generate, and then I redo it again. I do it again if I'm pushing something out that's going to be that I want to push out there. So there's ways to use it. All right, a couple more questions, right? For
Mhm.
businesses, we're gonna wrap this whole thing up here, but for businesses looking to step into the marketing game, what's one piece of advice that you could give them right now?
Speed is going to matter. So whether it's speed to market, speed to creating content for your market,
Yeah.
you have the tools. You have technology, you have AI, you have there's so many things evolving right now, and traditional ways of doing things won't work as well. Even the big companies that move slowly are going to have to learn that even at the smallest levels of sales and marketing, things are moving faster. Your sales team should be able to identify customers faster, sort through data, analyze what's working faster, what didn't work, look through their last
Yeah.
quarters or years. Data crunch happens faster. Content creation happens faster. Developing your market happens faster. So, therefore, your go to market should happen faster. So, that's the thing. It's speed, and it doesn't have to sacrifice quality to do that because now we have tools, you mentioned AI, where we
Yeah.
can do speed and quality at the same time.
That's great. Way to wrap it up, man. Last question. Where can people get a hold of you? They have questions. Again, tell us again when that book's coming out and where can they catch up with you?
Yeah, the book is coming out 2/25/25, February
Okay.
25th. You can get early copies or get on the pre-launch team at aleejudge.com in the book section.
We'll
In
pop
fact, if
that
you go
up
to
here. Yeah, we'll
yeah, and in
pop that
fact,
up
if you
here.
put in aleejudge.com/cash, the name of the book, because that'll
Okay.
take you straight to the page where you can get on the pre-launch list. And then for content marketing, my agency is called Content Monsta with the A on the end, Monsta.
Love
And
it.
Content Monsta is your place for understanding and learning about, how to create content for your business that actually drives business and not just for marketing fun.
Fantastic. Lee, thank you for being here
Thank you,
today,
David.
man. I
Love
have
being here. Thanks for the conversation.
I've really enjoyed the conversation. Um, we're going to stay in touch, man. We're going to stay in touch. One, I'm
Absolutely.
going to pick up that book and I'm going to read it. And secondly, we need to stay in touch. We should do something together eventually down the road. I think it'd be fun to
Yeah.
work with you. And listen, everybody, like this show, share this show, just push it out to one person. We love the momentum that we're getting on it, and the views are cranking up. It's guests like you, Lee, that are really making this happen. And I really appreciate you being here. So, wealth, health, success to all of you out there, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.